How's everybody? Welcome. Share the live with friends so that we can all have a good discussion today. Got a lot of really important topics that I would like to talk to you guys about. So thank you very much for being here. Those of you that are here, it's another weekly 7. So share the live so that we can have a really rich discussion today together. I have some major things that I would like to talk to you guys about and that I would like your input on. So share the live, get your tea and your water and whatever makes you comfortable. Okay, anyway, let's just get started. And as you know, on the weekly 7, I like to talk about things that are going around in the world in the past week or so. So kind of things that have been happening a lot in the past week. I like to focus mainly on the United States where I live, as well as East Africa where I hail from. So if this is something that you would like to hear about, every Sunday I'm here at 2 p.m. Eastern time zone, as well as 9 p.m. East African time, trying to, kind of gauge a time that is suitable for a lot of people. So if you have any comments and concerns about that, do holler. So the email that I use for this show is udgoon7show@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, concerns, anything that you would like me to cover in particular, please let me know there, or shoot me a message on the Udgoon 7 page. So a lot of things have been happening this week, and we'll really get to the heart of a lot of the major things that have been happening. But if we start right here. Kenya plans to reopen the border with Somalia on the Lamu site, where it had blocked it last year. So it blocked it last year to disable smugglers, terrorists, and human traffickers from being able to use the Kiunga cross-border point in Lamu. And it's actually planning on to opening it this year, because the fishermen that have been using that route before have complained about people who are selling Mira, or like Mira traders. Mira is Qat. Qat traders have been using it. So the fishermen have been complaining about that. And the Lamu County Commissioner had actually said that there are plans underway to reopening it. So that site is going to be reopened here soon. And I think that would be somewhat good, because it will enable more trade to happen between the two countries that are actually always having some type of conflict, right? And that's the kind of thing with countries that are near each other. They just have conflict, and it's just due to proximity. They're right next to each other. They're obviously going to have more movement between their border, and they're more likely to have some sort of conflict. So this border is going to be opened here soon between the Kenya and Somalia border in Lamu. Lamu Tamu. Who's been to Lamu, by the way? Lamu was one of the places that I had planned on going when I was in Kenya in 2017, but I didn't get a chance to. So the next time I visit Kenya, I definitely want to check out Lamu Tamu. Tamu, by the way, means sweet in Kiswahili. All right, so a lot of things are happening in the world, right? And we have reached a momentum in the Black Lives Matter movement. And a lot of companies are basically seeing that this has become a trend, and this has become a really pertinent issue for them, have decided that they are actually going to speak up about things. And Netflix founder gives $120 million for U.S. Black college scholarships. So one of the things that people are thinking about is this, kind of like a performative thing, because the movement has gained momentum. Is this something that is just kind of performative, and it isn't really anything substantial? A lot of things that people are asking about are these major companies. How do they represent the people that they sell to, right? What do their boards look like? What kind of rights do their employees have? How are their Black and brown employees treated? So rather than just giving them money for scholarships, which is great, college education in the United States is very expensive. And I know about that personally and intimately. I am paying for it, and I will be for a very long time. So I support, giving students money to gain an education. And education is something that is very beneficial for a society, that all members of any particular society has access to education. But people need more. People need to know exactly the kind of things that companies are doing. Is this kind of like guilt-ridding? A lot of companies and business leaders are pledging solidarity with their Black employees and with their Black community. But tech companies, including Netflix, have fallen short in hiring, retaining, and promoting underrepresented minorities within their own ranks. So it's one thing to give money. It's a whole nother thing to really have, Black and brown community members be part and parcel of your company and really be represented. So Netflix here is being challenged by a lot of people to, do more than talk the talk, right? Walk the walk, not only give money and make sure that people are represented within your company and that they're able to have good representation. Amo says she has been to Lamu Tamu. Yes, I see pictures of it. You know, I haven't been there, but it's definitely high on the list. High on the list. Inshallah, one of these days is something that I would like to do, especially with my son. You know how it is with immigrant kids, like children of immigrants growing up in this country, and they have a certain perception of Africa because they live here and they're given narrative from the Western media that Africa is this, really barren, desolate, diseased place. So my goal for my son is to take him to many, many African countries to show him, that Africa, it is a place, and, there are different variety of places in Africa. And like any place, it has its good and bad. And the thing is that in the Western media, what's highlighted is just the bad. So we need to be showing our kids the good as well, so that they can have a more well-rounded view of Africa. Even me, who stayed in Africa for a while, when I was like growing up here, going to it was like late middle school, high school, I was like, oh my gosh, are there like snakes everywhere? I don't want to go to Africa. Are there like lions everywhere? Where did I get that idea? I got that idea from the media. So media is really important. Which kind of goes back to the point for Netflix and other tech companies that they need to do better, for media representation. And they need to also support Black storytelling that isn't always about Black trauma and Black oppression. I've seen like some of the movies I watch Prime Video, and it has a Black Lives Matter section. And a lot of the stories are just about, being oppressed and slavery and just, police brutality. And all of these stories are important to tell. However, that isn't just the lives that Black people live. We live the mundane life stuff as well. We live, we breathe, we dream, we go to college, we work, we have families, we look for love, like just the regular human stuff. The way that white people are represented on the media, somebody is going to college and, struggling in college, or somebody is like, struggling in their marriage, just, regular stories. That's what I would like to see. Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video. So give money to Black artists, give money to Black filmmakers so that they can tell all of these variety of stories about Black people, so that the association with Black people is not criminality and not downtrodden trauma and oppression. I'm really getting tired of that. So Netflix, the challenge is on to you. Give me some money. I write. And I like filmmaking and I like acting. So there's that. All right. So we covered a couple of things there. Let us go to our United States, our racist in chief. Am I supposed to say that about the president? But he is, right? Just yesterday, he was talking about just the other day, he was talking about Ilhan, and I'm totally mispronouncing her name, Ihan, and how she should go back to Somalia. And, every day, sometimes I wonder, that I'm like, is this real? Is this a nightmare that this is the president of the United States? And then I realize, when I really look at the history of this country, how plausible it is that Trump is the president of the United States. But anyways, he had a Tulsa rally, which was really not successful at all. And during a pandemic and a national racial reckoning. So in this time of all of this uncertainty about the future, you need some solidarity from a president. You need recognition about what's going on in the world. And you need, a really good plan of how we're going to move forward as a nation united, right? And that is not what he's about. And what he'd rather do is pander to his fan base of, a lot of people who are like him, to be honest, So it was very disappointed to watch it, but not surprising. right? We talked about Tulsa, Oklahoma, what happened there last week with the Tulsa massacre. And it's very unfortunate, that a president doesn't recognize the significance of the place that he's at, the history of the nation that he is the leader of. And, the only, I guess, plus side to this rally was that a bunch of young kids on TikTok said that they were signed up for the protest, signed up for the rally to like fill the seats and whatever. And they booked a lot of tickets and obviously did not show up because they were just trolling him. Yes, Hassan here mentions it. K-pop fans booked tickets en masse. So K-pop fans booked tickets en masse, and his campaign manager was left red-faced. The stadium was primarily empty. Shame, shame, shame. And he always likes to talk about, how there's a lot of people supporting him and how there's going to be, a million people. And the stadium doesn't even hold that many people, I think the count was 20,000? I don't really remember, but it was not that much. It certainly was not a million, it certainly wasn't a million. So there's that, right? Just the dishonesty. There's just a lot of things that, you wonder about this presidency. If things are, if things are okay, but we know they're not okay. Our only other option is to vote him out of office. And then the other person that we're stuck with is Joe Biden. If that occurs, and, there's a lot of conversations about Joe Biden as well that we're not going to get into today. We will talk about it next time. But it's not really a good time right now in the United States. It's not a good time in the world right now. This year has been a year of just a lot of great discomfort, of growth, of, revolution. So it's great in that revolutionary sense, right? But in that growth and discomfort, you can't have growth without discomfort, right? But just yesterday, I was talking to a girlfriend. I was like, girl, I'm so tired. I am perpetually tired, day in, day out. I'm tired, and sometimes you get the thought, I just want things to go back to normal. But it's like, is there a normal? What was normal about the lives that we were living before? We're just ignoring the reality, and we can no longer afford to ignore the reality. A lot of us, Black people are realizing that we've always known this, but it's kind of more and more at the forefront in the age of technology and social media and camera phones, that if not today, then, tomorrow. It could be you next, right? So these kind of things do not really allow us to settle our minds, right? Especially as parents, it does not allow us to settle our minds at all. And it's become a year also of a lot of anti-racism education, which, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and plug a book if you are a reader. So it's called Me and White Supremacy. And if you are a white person who is, benefits from white privilege in the white dominated societies that we live in, this would be a really good book for you to read. It is by a lady named Layla Saad. But if you type in Me and White Supremacy, it is very popular. It's a book right now. And it's not just a reading book, it's a reflection book. It's also an action, and basically challenges you to really think about racism and how you are responsible and complicit in the way that the societies that you live in are set up. So even if you don't do anything, you are complicit. If you're not a mean, outwardly, overtly racist person, you are still complicit because of the power dynamics and power structures in the country that you live in that favors you, that gives you unearned privilege. So this is a really good book, Me and White Supremacy. You read it, you reflect, there's going to be discomfort, and at the end of the tunnel, there's going to be growth. And, I think you should check it out. All right. So that was a plug for Me and White Supremacy. All right. We have Amo, who says the man responsible for the 94 crime bill that put millions of Black people in prison. Yes, that is our guy, Joe Biden. And I use that term, our guy, very loosely. I am not you know, it's like when people were going to go with Hillary on the last presidency, it was like, I guess I'm with her. So yeah, like Hassan is saying, at this point, he's a lesser of the evil. And we have at the lesser of the evil we have at the White House. I wish it was my man Bernie at the ticket. I also wish I was definitely a Bernie sis. I fully admit it, and I definitely do wish it was Bernie, but this is who we have, and I'm not really of the opinion that the Democratic Party is necessarily better. They're just seem to be a little bit more immigrant and friendly than the Republican Party. Republican Party in the last, I don't know, what is it? 20, 30 years more have really just have this image of just being prejudiced, racist, right? It's become synonymous, and they have a lot of work to do in disassociating themselves with that, unless that's the image that they want to be associated with, So, all right, let us see. We're at 20 minutes. You see, I'm such a talker, and this is something that I just love to do. All right, so we'll get into the heart of things that have been going on this week. And it's just really like the very uncomfortable conversations, but really necessary conversations, right? So I'll preface this with, I'll start this with something that's going on in the world, and we'll link it into something else that's going on in the world. So 4,000 schoolgirls are impregnated in Kenyan's Machakos County. So during the COVID pandemic, a lot of the schools are obviously closed. Parents are still working. And from what I was reading, a lot of these girls are sent to, the countryside to be with grandparents so that the parents can continue working and have somebody to look after their children. And what had happened is that a lot of these young women have become pregnant, and a lot of the conversations surrounding it is not that they're engaging in relations with people like their own age, but that this is because of older relatives preying on these young women. So you have these kids, a lot of them under 17, and many of them also 14 or under, that are, becoming pregnant because they have been sexually violated by people that they were trusted with, or people that are members of their family, or people that are members of their community. And so for me, as a mother and as a school teacher, like looking at this 4,000 schoolgirls impregnated, I'm like, this is a crisis. This is an emergency. We need to be screaming loudly about this. We need to be talking about this. We need to have, action. This can't happen, and it shouldn't happen, to young women, to anybody at all. So, and it's very disheartening. It's very disheartening for me. So I think about this and I'm like, what is something that, other than talking about it, what are some ways that we can be accountable and that we can hold people accountable so that things like these don't happen and aren't normalized, So when we look at this, 4,000 schoolgirls impregnated, 17 years old or less, many of them less than 14 years old, this is a major catastrophe. This is an emergency. This is an atrocity. This should not happen at all. So as a parent, like I'm sick, to my stomach, as a school teacher, I'm thinking about, goodness, your kids, like this should not be what you're going through at all. This isn't the stage of life yet, So very disheartening, right? And then we get into, all right, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment, let's have a little music break, because things are about to get heavy. Share the live with people, share the live with, friends and family. I definitely want to get into the things that have been happening in Somali social media this week. So we're going to talk about, Somali social media and what's been happening. And so share the live with friends, share the live with, a lot of people so that we can have a rich conversation about this and really talk about kind of our next action step, right? Because we really can't have a conversation like this without any steps. We need to have action. We need to have accountability. We need to know, how we're going to move forward. All right. Let's listen to some music to what kind of songs have you guys been listening to? Let's look for a new song. Ooh, let's do this one. I like oldies. Oldies. You like oldies? Can you hear it well? All right. I like oldies. You know, a lot of people like this. So we'll do Dayah next. Okay. So let's talk about what's been going on in, the world, especially of Somali social media this week, where we had a Somali Me Too movement basically set on fire, where a young woman breaks this culture of silence, right? And we were talking about how the Arab culture surrounding young women, Arab culture that only applies to women. We should tell you from the gate that is an environment that is just kind of ripe for abuse and exploitation, right? Because the culture of shame is on the young women. And the young women are the ones that are held responsible for things that even happen to them, right? So this this basically makes it just a really nice environment. And I use nice here to talk about how it makes it nice for the abusers and the perpetrators, right? And this young woman basically said, no, I am done, right? I am done. And she said she had held on to this for 4 years. And imagine living with something like that for 4 years, being tormented entire time, knowing that if you speak out, your name will be vilified, right? Knowing that, that people will accuse you of doing the wrong thing, right? And she was very, very clear about the circumstances surrounding it, how, she was out and about with friends, how there was drug usage, right? And still saying like, hey, that should not have happened to me, okay? And I absolutely agree. Intoxication or using any drugs, which guys don't use drugs, but none of that is permission or a reason to violate a person, right? So there's still guidelines. And I believe that for us, because we blame the girls a lot of times the things that we say is, don't go to that place. Don't wear this. Don't hang out with this person. And some of these things for first of all, a lot of these things are unreasonable because a lot of people are abused and violated by people close to them, relatives that are in their home, that are visiting their home. So that's that, right? But also it's very unrealistic to put that onus, to put that responsibility on young women, to always have to safeguard themselves like that, and the kind of paranoia it instills in a person, right? And not teach the boys not to violate young women, not teach the boys that women and girls are human like you, and you don't have a right to touch another person. And talking about consent and boundaries throughout your young boys' lives. I have a young boy. He's a young man now. He's 13, you know? My responsibility as a parent is to make sure when he was young, and he's still relatively young, right? But when he was young, I was very worried about him, anybody doing anything wrong to him. You know, I'm being hyper vigilant about who I leave him with, and at talking to him and making sure that we are talking about body parts, that we are talking about nobody's allowed to touch you. Even the doctor isn't allowed to touch you unless it is necessary. You know, unless it's necessary, and you're a minor, so your parent is there. So talking about all the ways that people abuse power. And then now that he's turning into a young man, right? And we have talked about consent and boundaries all throughout. And now as he's turning into a young man, it shifts from like being hyper vigilant about, you know, I'm still hyper vigilant about his safety in other ways, but also making sure that he doesn't harm another person, because he's a young man and he's getting older. So he's growing stronger, right? And he has that, you know, strength advantage on one end, and that patriarchal support on the other end, because he's a boy and he's grown into a young man. So my responsibility as a mother of a son is to make sure that he does not turn out to be a predator, that he does not harm anybody's child out there. And I wonder, right, and we have these conversations a lot in our community, I wonder, you know, if other parents of boys are thinking like that, or do they think that the sun rises out of their boys' rear ends? Right? Because we're biased as parents. We're very biased. Okay. But we have to be realistic, and we have to see our children as individuals who are capable of good and bad. And just because they're your angel doesn't really mean that they are angels. They're not. They're human. So they're capable of doing wrong things. Okay. So how do we get to have that conversation with our children that, hey, you have a responsibility towards other people. You have a responsibility to make sure that other people are protected from you. You don't say any unkind things to them, and you don't do things to them that they don't want to be done to them, or you wouldn't want anybody to do to you. Okay. So I believe that a lot of these things start at home, and somehow, some way, you know, we're not doing the right thing with our boys. Okay. Some time ago, I talked about the way that boys are raised in comparison to how girls are raised. You know, I said something along the lines of, they love their boys, but they raise their daughters. Okay. They love their boys and give them free reign to do what they do, and let them just be out there without any like guidelines or accountability. And they really raise their daughters and instill responsibility in them, you know, and a lot of that responsibility is either taking care of the home and helping the parents, or making sure that the young girl safeguards her, you know, herself. Okay. So I'm really proud of Muna. That's her name, Muna Ahmed. She is, you know, a revolutionary. She said, you know, I'm not going to stay silent. And then she's basically inspired a lot of young women to come forward and speak their truth. And what, you know, the people that did them wrong were counting on was the culture of silence, the culture of shame onto young women. And we need to get rid of that. And the is on the person who violates another person. That's shameful. Okay. So we have a long way to go with that. And this is definitely the beginning stages. I really urge parents, you know, to make sure that their children are, one, safe, and make sure that you don't trust anybody with them, even even your relatives, right? A lot of, you know, violation of this nature happens because of the people that are usually trusted, the teachers and the relatives. I would feel bad sometimes for thinking these things, but I thought to myself, you feel bad, but what's more important, you feeling a little bit guilty of thinking badly of this person, of what they could potentially do, or actual harm befalling your child. That's worse. Okay. So, and also teaching young women that their bodies are their own, not to just like safeguard their body for their husband or whatever. No, your body is your own, and nobody has a right to violate you. I think that's a better message, and to boys, hey, people are like you, and bodily autonomy is important. You don't have a right to touch another person. And what a lot of things young people do, I teach young people, so I teach ninth grade, right? And what a lot of things that they do is like they just, they're very handsy, and they, play with each other and like hug each other and like move each other around and, grab each other's bags. And I always tell them, like, guys, you think this is funny, but don't do it. A person might not say something, but that doesn't mean they're not uncomfortable. Stop doing that. And there's a lot of times it's like the young boys that are just handsy like that. I don't really see personally a lot of the young girls that are handsy like that. It's usually a lot of the young boys. And, and they don't quite, and there's also that, as they're developing and adolescence, it's really important to talk about these things more. Like, I know you're doing this because you're playing around with your friend, but that's not really a nice way to play. You shouldn't touch another person. And if the person objects, hey, I said, welcome. So I'm talking about what has been going on in this week with Somali social media, about the Somali Me Too, and about the young women who were talking about how they had been violated and how they were holding those people accountable, and how we should not put the shame or the responsibility or the onus of shame on young women, but we should put it on the people who are the perpetrators and who are the ones doing the violating. So what I'm also talking about is, as I'm a teacher, and the kind of things that I see in the classroom, or young people just playing around with each other and just not really taking serious, hey, hands off, and they don't really think that they're doing anything wrong, because in their mind they're just playing around and they don't mean anything by it. But you can normalize that behavior of just touching other people, grabbing their bag, grabbing their body in some way, because in that just like, they're getting older, 9th grade, 10th grade, they grow up that way, they go to college, it's just the normalization of just touching people just kind of continues, just touching people without their permission. Okay. And I think that's the biggest problem there. It's just that entitlement over women's bodies, entitlement. Somebody on Twitter one time wrote that for some reason, guys are able to pass other men like when they're like in a crowd without touching them. But when they're passing a woman in a crowd, they grab their waist or they touch her somehow. Okay. But for some reason, they don't touch the men. Right. So it's just like these kind of like violating ways, it makes a person feel very uncomfortable in their body. It makes a person feel like their body is not theirs. I personally, like, somebody's passing me in a crowd, I don't want them touching me. If they can avoid touching me, I would really appreciate that, especially not touch me with their hands onto my waist. Like, why would you do that? That's just very inappropriate. So there are like these little things. So when we talk about rape and sexual assault, a lot of times we talk about the big things, like that everybody kind of knows is wrong, right? We know that rape is wrong. We know that sexual assault is wrong, but we don't talk about the rape culture. We don't talk about the culture that enables this to escalate to that point. The culture that minimizes women's bodily autonomy, right? That minimizes the fact that women own their bodies and have autonomy, and people shouldn't touch them, right? They minimize the catcalling that the young boys do. Okay, and this isn't anything that's specific to Somalis or any specific ethnicity or race. This is stuff that happens a lot. A young woman walks by a group of boys and she cannot peacefully walk by. Something is said. Hey, why don't you smile? Hey, you're beautiful. Da, 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 da. Like, I just want to peacefully walk on the street without being bothered, just like you. That's it. Like, I don't want anything else. I just want to be not bothered at all. So there's things like that. We don't talk about the culture of patriarchy, right? In a male-dominant society, we don't talk about the misogyny and the sexism that dehumanizes women, right? That puts women in this good girl or bad girl category. So in this instance where this young woman is out and about partying with people her own age, she's automatically cast as the bad girl, and she deserved that. But no, she didn't. You know what I mean? She's doing what young people do. Now, you can have your own opinions about that. It doesn't matter, though. It still doesn't justify anything happening to her. Okay, so there's this automatic assumption. She's a bad girl. She probably wanted that. She asked for it. No, If somebody asks for it, they ask for it verbally, and they're engaging with a person that they want to do that with. And that's their business. That's nobody's business, right? So somebody's not asking for anything if they're wearing something short. Somebody's not asking for something because they're at a party with other people, their age, having fun, doing what young people do, right? So there's all of these things that before we get to the really bad stuff that we need to talk about, we need to talk about the culture that enables this. Because a girl might not talk about this because she'll say to herself, well, I shouldn't have been there. And people will think that I'm a bad girl. So I'm not going to talk about this really heinous thing that happened to me because I deserved it. Because that is what our culture does. That's what we say to young women. You were at the wrong place. You deserve that. No, nobody deserves that. If I signed up to go and hang out with people and party, that's what I signed up for. I did not sign up for sexual assault. And we need to be very clear about that. And we need to not focus on what a girl was wearing, where she was at, that she was with the opposite sex. None of those justify sexual assault. Because when you're talking about these things, you're implying that she deserved it and that she's responsible for her own violation. So not only is someone violated, and they feel bad because of that, because they've lost power. Okay, so and rape and sexual assault are about power. So the person feels powerless, and then they feel guilt because now they're being told you deserve that. You did that to yourself. Okay, and then a person is very much at risk of going in a downward spiral. A lot of the young women talked about mental health problems since then, having high anxiety in public, not being comfortable with their bodies anymore. And then girls that weren't using drugs before, saying that they used them afterwards to deal with it because they couldn't function anymore, to numb the pain. Okay, so that's what the culture of shame does. And this is a conversation that needs to happen continuously. And we need to correct our young boys. And those of you young men, you need to correct your homeboys when they say something that is out of pocket, right? When they call some girl easy, right? Because that is part of the culture. That is rape culture. Okay? So you need to call out your friends when they talk about things like that. And without that little, without working on the smaller steps and just going to rape is bad. Yes, we know rape is bad. We know sexual assault is bad. We need to talk about the things that lead up to that are the dehumanization of girls and women. And that is something that is rampant and that a lot of people partake in, men and women. A lot of slut shaming done by women. A lot of women coming up on the internet and talking about, oh, you were high off this and you got raped? Couldn't be me. Really? First of all, that's really heartless and a cruel thing to say to someone, but really, right? So we have a lot of issues and a lot of things to cover. Actionable steps. Teach your boys not to be predators. Right? Some people say, well, men are protectors. What do men protect other women? What do men protect women from? Other men, right? The world would be a better place if men didn't go out of their way to harm women, to exert and exercise power over women. What would men then protect women from? We would all just live peacefully in the world that is meant for all of us. All right, so we're coming at 43 minutes. 43 minutes. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Very near and dear to my heart. Something that I challenge everybody. Have these conversations. I have a teenager, so I have this uncomfortable conversation with him. And he says things like, "I know, Hoya, I'm not stupid. I know." And I'm like, I know you're not stupid, but sometimes, with these farakayar, people get caught in the moment and they're just playing around with their friends. No, that's not okay. So before we get to the big things, let's not even do these little things. Let's not touch somebody without their permission. Let's not grab their bag. Let's not touch their stuff. Let's listen to them the first time they say stop. First time somebody says stop, just stop. That's it. No conversation, no making them feel bad or saying like, what's wrong with you? None of that. Just stop, right? Boundaries and respecting people's boundaries. You know, that's really all I had today. Really glad that, you know, you guys are here with me. Appreciate it. I was thinking actually of asking you guys a question. You know, I've been coming on live like at 2 p.m. on Sundays because I just, you know, wanted it to be a regular time. And I thought 2 p.m. is not like too early. People will be up. But then I thought to myself, maybe it is a little too early for us that are like in the United States. Africa and Europe are kind of like closer together, you know? And I was thinking, what time would be good for you guys? So everybody just write a time that would be good for you. What time should I come online? Let me know. What is a good time? And like please write Eastern or Central or wherever you are in the world so that like it's easy for me to. So what time should I come live? So this is like an informal poll, okay? So tell me, what time should I come live? What time is a good time? What time is good for you? You think it will be a good time for you? Let me know. So when you write like, I don't know, 2 p.m., try to indicate where you are in the world. Try to indicate where you are in the world by using like Eastern time zone, Central, East African, I don't know, 2 p.m. Minnesota. So 2 p.m. Minnesota, it's like, I think 1 p.m. for me, because I think you guys know 2 p.m. would be like 3 p.m. for me, because I think I'm like 1 hour later than you guys. Okay, so 2 p.m. Minnesota. I think Minnesota, what time is in Minnesota? It's not Central. Is it Central or Mountain? Let me check. So what time would be a good time? So I think it's just 1 hour difference and I'm 1 hour ahead. So 2 p.m. would be 3 p.m. for me. Okay, so 3 p.m. for me. All right, so I got one person. All right. Come on, guys, tell me. What would be a good time? What would be a good time? Because I do want to come on in a time that's like convenient for people. And that way people can engage, you know, with the content, can all have these, you know, conversations together. So that's Central Ikram. Okay, so that's Central. All right. You're about to troll me, Abdul? So what time should I come on, Abdul? Tell me. What time should I come live? So Sunday's just a good day for me. I like Sundays, you know, I like Sundays. So Sunday's probably gonna stay. But like I'm open to the time of day, I guess. So I would like to know a time that's like more convenient for people, no matter where you are in the world. But try to indicate the where you are in the world. So we got like about a minute and a half to like 50 minutes. I try not to like, you know, lag too long either in terms of time. All right, so while people are thinking about what time is good for them, I'm gonna put on a song. Let's see. Somebody said Dayah Del Nursha. You know, I'm not very current, but I will look at something that's current. Typically, okay, 2020. Hey, 4 days ago. Hey, Hester Subwaya. MashaAllah, 4 days ago. Let's see. So far, I like the videography. البحث.com. What did he say for here, the boss lady? Wait. I think he dedicated it to director and director. His wife directed this. I like it. Oh, that's legit. Hey, let's listen. Oh, wow. Okay. So 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. Oh, this is a nice song. I'm going to listen to it. I know. Okay. So, guys, 15 minutes, right? So I'm going to head out of here. Thank you for sharing time with me today. Really appreciate it. And I will look at it, and I'm going to do another poll. And then I will see you when I see you. Inshallah, next week. مع السلامة.